Hi everyone, and greetings from a couch in New York City in what is traditionally Lenape land. I'm excited today to be announcing that we are soon to be releasing a paper that examines different financing strategies for companies seeking investment to become employee-owned. And you might be asking, why is a human rights lawyer who runs a human rights organization interested in such a topic? And the answer is that we believe that employee and worker ownership is critical to addressing economic inequality and a host of other business-related inequities. And that advancing and promoting employee ownership is poised to become a critical ESG strategy for those investors, impact investors and ESG investors and others who care about transformational and deep change to address the inequities and inequalities of today. So why is employee ownership so important? Because for the last 3 decades, there's been a steady increase in wealth inequality. And a lot of attention and analysis has focused on the slow and uneven growth of wages in terms of contributing to inequality. But a key overlooked fact is just the massive inequity and the massive inequitable distribution of business ownership. The top 1% of Americans own over half of all US corporate equities and mutual shares. And the inverse is also true, that the bottom 50% own less than 1%. We need fundamentally to make the ownership of businesses much more equitable if we are going to address economic inequality. And there's major evidence that employee ownership does that. In companies that are majority employee owned, you see 2.2 times greater savings for workers and 8.8% higher wages. Employee ownership has particular power to address race and gender inequality. In fact, one recent study found that if all businesses were to become just 30% employee owned, then the median Black household wealth would quadruple, as would the wealth of the bottom 50% of all Americans. In this way, it's really exciting for us to imagine investors who are looking to address racial and gender inequality, encouraging employee ownerships in industries or regions that employ more female workers or workers of color. But beyond inequality, there's evidence that employee-owned firms are generally offering more stable jobs, more satisfying working conditions, and on top of this, that they also improve business performance, such as being less likely to close or go bankrupt, or to default on loans. With all of this, it's hard not to get excited about the potential of employee ownership as a major transformational new ESG and ethical investing strategy.
So Amelia talked about how employee ownership is a really powerful tool to address social equity issues, but it's also a way to build a really strong business. And that's because it aligns incentives. Everyone's in the same boat, everyone's an owner, and that means ideally everyone can act like an owner, turning off the lights, finding more efficient ways to do things, contributing ideas that make the business stronger. So it makes sense, it's intuitive. I mean, if people's actions really affect their paycheck, that of their colleagues directly, people are going to go above and beyond. And that's why it's really a proven model with thousands of employee-owned businesses, big and small, in the US and globally. Just to name a few examples, we've got the John Lewis Partnership in the UK, decades in business, 80,000 workers. Public Supermarket has around 200,000 in the US. So a couple big examples of the success of employee ownership. And it's also got a lot of momentum right now, as previous owners are thinking about what the right succession plan is for them. Maybe they want some cash in terms of a sale of a business, but they're also thinking about their legacy. So we're seeing big companies like Taylor Guitars convert to employee ownership, as well as small businesses like Ward Lumber, small business in the Northeast, convert to employee ownership. And these models are most effective when you combine that sort of monetary employee ownership with internal business structures that help people across the business contribute and act on new ideas and creative ideas to improve the business. That's how you get sort of the best of both worlds, and it's a really beautiful model. So that's a bit on the why employee ownership. Amelia talked a bit about the social equity issues, hugely powerful, and it's also a great business model itself. Investors have a really powerful role, important and critical role to play in advancing employee ownership across the economy. And there's three main ways that they can do it. First is direct investment. Second is pushing for disclosure. And the third is engaging with companies and asset managers across an investor's portfolio. So direct investment, like it sounds, most intuitive, putting money to work to create more employee-owned businesses or create more employee-owned businesses or grow existing employee-owned businesses. So when a company converts from traditional ownership to employee ownership, they often take on new capital to make that conversion happen. And that's an opportunity for external investors to provide that capital. And we've seen examples from the Taylor Guitars conversion involving a massive pension fund. So that's sort of a single deal with a big investor, to smaller deals, co-op deals that are funded, more individual investors. And then there's actual investment firms and an increasing number of investment firms that are actually managing money to fund these conversions in a more efficient way. So that's groups like A&H Capital Partners, Seed Commons, and there's many more out there doing really good work there. So lots of opportunity on the direct investment side. But there's also sort of structural, systematic work that institutional investors can do. So we've seen how foundational disclosure has been to investors pushing for action on climate change, political contributions, a whole host of issues. And we're starting to see momentum around human capital as well. So the SEC just required disclosure on human capital, and employee ownership fits squarely within that. But we don't really know which companies offer, broad-based stock ownership. We don't know what percent of companies have broad-based share ownership, and if they do, what percent ownership is that? Calling for that is pretty fundamental for investors to really have the tools they need to understand their investment landscape, and also to have meaningful engagements with companies on what they can do to promote employee ownership. So disclosure is really foundational and fundamental. And it can really be the backbone of the third approach, which is engagement. And, again, climate change, political action, a whole host of issues. Investors have been really powerful in pushing for companies in their portfolios to take action. And employee ownership should be no exception. Even public companies, obviously they're going to be investor owned, at least partially, have used minority employee ownership really effectively to drive performance and reward their workforce. And that's examples like Harley-Davidson, which is giving stock to all shop floor employees. That's a really powerful model. So public companies can do it too, but investors can also engage in other aspects of their portfolio. So within the private equity sphere, KKR, for example, the third largest private equity firm, is also incorporating employee ownership into their private equity deals, obviously to drive performance. But it also has benefits for workplace culture and can increase the wealth of working people. And that's something that institutional investors can engage with their asset managers on what types of deal structures they're doing. Are they really truly inclusive? And there's a lot of different models. A smaller, newer firm, Good Scout Capital, is doing something similar with a really great model. So lots of opportunities for engagement in terms of pushing asset managers and companies in their portfolios to do more on employee ownership. So that's a summary. I mean, really quick and clearly, I think there's so much work to do. I think investors can do a lot on employee ownership. And I just want to close on why it's something that really has captivated me and really resonates with me, and something I believe deeply in. And the first is just from personal experience. I work in the food and agriculture industry with so many talented people across the business. And I just think there's so much untapped potential. And employee ownership really offers a tool to build really strong businesses and help people who work really hard and have a lot of skills and knowledge and a lot to contribute really reach the middle class. So I really believe in it for that. And then more broadly, we're all paying attention to political division, political crises, if you want to see it like that. it's sad because there's, so many great people, and I think employee ownership is a really powerful tool to bring people together, putting everyone in the same boat, minimizing those divisions, and that's so critical, especially at a time when so many people feel left behind. So it's even if it's one company at a time, it's an incredibly structural tool.
So if what we have said here has perked your interest in any way, please get in touch using any of these contact details. Feel free to contact us if you would like information about our forthcoming report, but also if you want to take action on the 3 points that Noah outlined in terms of demanding disclosure relating to employee ownership, taking steps towards more investor advocacy and engagement, or directly investing in employee ownership. Can't wait to hear from you. Thank you.